Hello, YouTube. We're going to focus again on my deconstructing spirituality and my faith journey. I decided after watching a webinar by Matt Rudnitsky, I think is how you say his name. He goes by Rud. He teaches people how to write punchy books. So I think I've decided to write a short memoir, like 100+ page short story. And it's going to be on my spiritual journey, which I've shared part of here. If you look up my Deconstructing My Spirituality videos, you'll get a taste of what I'm talking about. But I've decided to give you a little sneak peek at what I've written so far. It's just the introduction and the beginning of my faith journey. And so I'm going to read it to you now. Hope this video doesn't go too long. Hope you enjoy it. Appreciate any feedback in the comments, but here we go. The working title, Divorcing Christianity, but I don't spell it with Christ. And I'll explain why. It's Divorcing Xianity. Here it goes. Leah Remini, Scientology in the Aftermath, was a 2016 documentary series that ran for 3 seasons on A&E. I watched every episode and was rapt. Why was I so curious about this religious cult? I didn't grow up in Scientology. But religious trauma documented by folks trying to help victims to escape resonated with me. I also suffered trauma inflicted since childhood by the cult of American Christianity. I chose that alternate spelling because nowhere in the cult do I find the Spirit of Christ, so I removed his name, hence the Xianity spelling of Christianity. It's like taking Christ out of Christmas, I get it. This is just your editor's note here, but I went with that spelling for a particular reason, and that's why. Back to the story. Since my escape and deconstruction began in 2005-2006, when I started blogging and participating in the online community now defunct called The Ooze, I have been on a spiritual quest towards healing and enlightenment. I've read many self-help books. I've studied the tenets of Christianity, the way of Christ, not his cult, and compared them to Eastern mysticism, drawing many parallels between them. I find myself these days seeking out recovering fundamentalists and atheists on YouTube who have a lot to say about the subject. Editor's note, I've told you before about Christy Burke. She's one of my favorites. Check her out. For the last 2 decades, I've found myself divorcing Christianity. This is the Reader's Digest version of my story, a spiritual journey. I have always been a seeker of truth. Born into a Catholic family, I was first baptized as a baby by a priest, then 2 more times through immersion by Protestant ministers. I like to say I'm Catholic-Baptist-Costal, but as a young boy, I was captivated and altogether fascinated by the Catholic priesthood. I wanted to be a priest at 5 years old. My mom encouraged it, making me proper vestments so that I could serve communion to my baby sister and our stuffed animal parishioners. Sorry for all the air quotes. That pursuit of holiness never left me. As a young adult, I became a leader in my church through music and mentoring. I dove into the Pentecostal tradition headlong, abandoning my old friends and my album collection of classic rock because, it was of the devil. I was a total believer in what my church would call sold out. It's kind of like selling your soul to the devil, only I joined the good side, the Christian cult. Never did I have the approval of my parents until I sold out like that to Christ. I gave them my time, talents, and money every week to the church. I'd often spend 5 hours on a Sunday morning performing for multiple services and rehearsing beforehand. I gave away my services for free for 18 straight years. Then I burn out. It was in the 13th year of my religious trauma that I broke. After all those years of abuse and being used by the church, I had a psychotic break. I was in the midst of planning a youth spiritual retreat, which I was made director of, and suffering the deepest, darkest period of my life. I was 7 years married with no children. Failure. I was 3 years post-bachelor's degree and working for a state agency but not excelling. Failure. I never pursued my passions, drumming or writing, as a profession. I gave away those things. Failure. And the youth retreat was not coming together. I didn't even have my leadership team formed because I was depressed and I couldn't focus. I called the governing body, a 501c3 that I helped to incorporate, and stepped down from leadership, backing out of my commitment at the 11th hour. Miserable failure. That was my thought pattern at the time. I was already fantasizing about how I would end my life. A month later, I tried. Again, failure. When I woke up on the ground beside my truck and outside the exhaust-filled cab, I drove home very woozy, got into the tub at my apartment, and called my wife for help. I spent the Christmas holiday that year in a behavioral science center, aka psych ward. That certainly got my attention, but the following year was the best of my life. I bought my first house the Monday after Mother's Day. It was a brand new custom home with 4 bedrooms. Months after that, I adopted my first daughter, who came to our new home at 6 weeks old. I was flying high atop the world. I gave God all the credit and all of the glory. I was back in church playing drums for youth and adult services, mentoring young people again, fulfilling my calling. And hearkening back to those days playing priest in Mom's basement, I truly felt I had a calling into ministry. I did rejoin the retreat ministry I had started in the 1990s, and I led a retreat weekend for young men, as I had committed to do before my suicide attempt. Only now, I had a real testimony. I had a real survivor story to tell. I told that story for years in the church and outside the church. I adopted a second daughter, and it seemed as miraculous and out of the blue as the first adoption. But that's when things begin to change. All right, that's the introduction, basically the first chapter of the book. I'll keep reading it as a series here on my YouTube channel. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. You can even subscribe. Leave me a comment down below. Check out some of my other videos. They're all raw and unedited, just like this one. I don't have the skills or the time, basically, to go in and edit and do fancy thumbnails and graphics and post things up over my shoulder. Go watch one of these 2 videos. No, I don't do all that. It's raw, unedited, unfiltered, and this is just me. So thanks for listening to the beginning of my spiritual journey. The working title of the book, Divorcing Christianity, and you'll get more as I write more. I'm just starting the next chapter called Deconstructing It All. More later. Thank you.